Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar session. Before I hand over, I'd like to introduce Oban International. Founded in 2002, we're a leading award-winning digital marketing agency specializing in international growth. Our core services include paid media, SEO, content marketing, social media, CRO, and UX, which we actually view through an international lens. And what makes us really unique is our Lime network, which stands for Local In-Market Expert. And with over 450 Limes in over 80 countries across the world, we're able to offer our clients up-to-date cultural insights that allows them to seize the best marketing opportunities and avoid any costly mistakes and ultimately lead to campaign success. We're also really proud to win numerous awards for some of our clients, including big bus tours. So without further ado, I shall hand over to Dave, who is going to talk to us about why Chinese users are deserting Baidu for Bing. Over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Kamal, and thank you everyone for joining. I also should say thank you to our Limes for helping out with this, because I couldn't do this without them. Been doing quite a lot of work recently in China with our Limes, and even just compared to a year or two ago, there's a lot of things happening and changing, which is very easy to miss. In Europe, in North America, what's going on in other markets such as in China. So hopefully I can shed a little bit of light onto what is happening today in the Chinese search market, and specifically why Baidu seems to be losing share to Bing and what that actually means for our Chinese-centric SEO. So let's take a look at the picture as it is. So Baidu have been losing share since 2022. This data comes from StatCounter. StatCounter basically have installed on a very large number of websites code that includes referrers. So that's how they find out how many people are using different search engines in different countries. Really useful information there available for different countries, so we use this a lot. And in China, we've seen over the last couple of years, Baidu lost a lot of share. Baidu managed to get down to only about half of the market they had share of back in the about April 2023. At that point, lots of people were trying out Bing Chat, so that was a part of it, and they did recover a bit since then, but they've nowhere near the market share that they used to have. They used to be around 80%. They're now down to 60%. And it's Bing mainly, we are going to talk about a couple of their other competitors, but it is Bing mainly who have been taking share from them. And not just through Bing Chat, but the Bing search engine. So I want to understand a little bit today about why that's happening. So let's start by breaking down where Bing's actually winning, because it isn't as straightforward as just everywhere and everybody. It's certain places and certain people, and Bing is winning on desktop. I'm going to talk a little bit more about why that is. But obviously, as you may be already guessing, a lot of people are using Microsoft products which have Bing bundled with them on desktop. So there we can see that Bing is actually bigger than Baidu on desktop. But Baidu is still biggest because mobile is actually where the most searches are happening in China. A lot of people using their mobile devices as their main access to the internet, certainly for their personal lives. So Bing much smaller there, as well as competitors, though still significant compared to other markets. If we compare Bing to Google in other markets, even the US, where Bing maybe has up to around 6% market share, still a bit higher. Certainly not traffic that you want to ignore if China is an important market for you. Just in case anybody was wondering, is this the case in Hong Kong as well? No, Google are able to operate in Hong Kong, and they are pretty dominant. And the same in Macau. But in mainland China, it is Google are not able to operate there. And Bing are only able to operate because they follow the guidelines given to them by the government and follow a lot of rules. So Baidu is focused on its mobile experience. So this is, one of the reasons why it's not so strong on desktop. It is, marketing itself as all about the mobile experience. So 2/3 of searches are taking place on mobile in China. Also Baidu's app, which includes the search functions, but also other functions as well. It's the 8th most popular app in China. And as you can see from these screenshots, with the browser-based version on the left and the app-based version on the right, there's a lot more to Baidu's services than just search. It is quite ad heavy, and even if you are using the search, it's quite ad heavy. And Baidu have a lot of its own properties. It has, a version of equivalent to YouTube and a version, equivalent to Wikipedia, and several other products as well, which it pushes up the results much more than kind of Google do. If you think Google are bad at it, Baidu are much worse. They also have a voice assistant built in, and while voice search arguably still isn't catching on in Europe and North America, in China it's much more common. Even getting on for 8 years ago now, when I was in China, I was seeing a lot of people walking down the street making, using their voice assistants, and it seemed to me much more standard thing there. And so there's actually 2.4 billion voice queries going through per month based on the latest data available. So Baidu's strong there as well. But the results are full of ads, and there are a lot of results from Baidu's partners. So if you look at this SERPs here, just show it very kind of quickly. There's lots of ads. There's lots of sites like JD.com there, who are a partner of Baidu and therefore get better rankings and have a commercial agreement for them to get better rankings, not just in the ads, but in the organic space as well. Because Baidu incentivize people to spend money. Paid search advertisers get verified listings and get badges, which show up on their organic results. If you're a paid advertiser, it impacts how frequently your site gets crawled. Basically, your whole site gets crawled automatically if you are paying for advertising. You may have better appearance of your organic results, which obviously then can impact click-through rate. Apparently, just being a paid advertiser rather than a partner doesn't actually mean that you would get better results. But obviously you can see that if your result is more likely to have a picture or take up more space, it's going to impact click-through rate, and that we believe in Baidu can impact rankings. And so I mentioned these partners. So we have on the right here a screenshot with Alibaba or 1688.com, which is Alibaba in China, highlighted in pink. So 3 results from them, and then JD.com, another one of their partners, 2 results from them in this search for giant travel mug. So there's, as you can see, the SERPs there dominated by partners. So this brings us on to the fact that Baidu's results aren't very good. This is the picture we're getting here. It's more difficult to find what you want. It's more difficult to find a variety of different sources. And this is one of the main reasons why people, lesser extent on mobile, but still on mobile, are going to other search engines, including Bing. And let's compare the two. So on the left, we've got Bing. On the right, we've got Baidu. And we can see Overall, more of a variety of different sites on Bing, different looking results, more commercial, ad heavy on Baidu. So a better set of results, I would say. And our Chinese limes who I've spoken to, agree that a lot of people are for that reason. Moving to Bing and Baidu, just have this perception of not being very good, though a lot of people are very used to it. So why though is Bing specifically doing so well on desktop? So already mentioned it, it is to do with people using Windows and using Microsoft Office Suite, which has Bing built into that, has Microsoft Edge browser with Bing built into that. Also, as mentioned back in April 2023, when Bing launched Bing Chat, Bing Bot as we were calling it at the time, a lot of people wanted to try that out in lots of different countries. We saw this, all around the world, Bing getting this sudden increase in use where people wanted to try that. But also overall, Bing is just closer to Google. And we can see that in Hong Kong and Macau, when there's the option of Baidu or Google, most people are choosing Google. But Bing is closer to Google than Baidu in terms of its ability to understand things like the intent behind a search, its ability to crawl JavaScript sites that Baidu often will miss certain pages or certain content from, because it's not as good at rendering that JavaScript and finding all the content that's available on a site. Bing also does not discriminate in the way Baidu does between different top-level domains. So Baidu just shows content most of the time from country code top-level domains for China, Hong Kong, and Macau, and there's very limited visibility for other top-level domains such as .com, .co.uk, .us, etc. Bing doesn't have that problem, and so it might be that there's some sites that are very difficult to find in Baidu, even if you know they exist, and they're much easier to find in Bing, and you're more likely to see more Western brands who have sites in China, which maybe aren't as well optimized for Baidu, and be able to find those in Bing. On the SERP we just had a look at, there were things like Louis Vuitton and so on. Let's just jump back. This is a search, by the way, for I did put it on the slide. I think this is a search for bucket bags. Yes, that makes sense. Yes, there it is. So as you can see, there are more what we might consider Western brands coming up for Bing, which means that also people using Bing are maybe going to be those who are looking to access information that's not available on Baidu. However, some sites are still not going to be included on Bing. For Bing to operate in China, it has to toe the line. There are certain types of sites that it can't show. There are certain specific sites that it is not allowed to show. So don't think that search results in Bing are going to be exactly the same as in any other country. There is some stuff that will be excluded. There's also differences in who is using Baidu and Bing. So as you may imagine, Bing is being used more by professional business users. It's being used more for people while they are at work, both for work purposes and for personal purposes, which they may be doing while they should be working, which of course we all do from time to time. But it's maybe most important for us to consider that if we are B2B business and we are selling it into China, then Bing becomes even more important to have that visibility on. I'm not saying you shouldn't be optimizing for Baidu as well. As we're going to talk about in a minute, sometimes there's things that we have to consider which one to kind of go after first. But you know, Bing is a very important place to have that visibility in China if you are in the business to business space. We don't have as much specific data on Bing as Baidu, but Baidu we know it's mainly younger users, especially those between 18 and 35 years old. 74% male and 40% degree educated or higher, though I would guess as it's kind of a lot of business use for Bing, maybe that percentage would be higher for the percentage degree educated. So it's a shame we don't have that data to compare. But talking to our Chinese limes, there definitely is a perception that people who use Bing are much more likely to be kind of Western looking, maybe more affluent demographic as well, and maybe more likely to be living in some of the big cities, particularly Beijing and Shanghai, etc. So getting an idea of who we're going to be targeting with each of these search engines. But as I say, I'm not saying you can just ignore one of them and just focus on the other. So if we're optimizing for Bing in China, how do we go about it? So a lot of the guidelines are the same. It's obviously excluding certain websites, but the way it crawls is basically the same it crawls in other markets, which is very similar to Google. So generally, the rules that work for Google work for Bing, and that's the case in China as well. But that might mean that there's some things that work well for Baidu that don't work well for Bing. So keyword stuffing, I'd say, doesn't really work so well for Baidu anymore anyway. But maybe you can get away with it a little bit more, but definitely wouldn't do that. There's no need for meta keywords for Bing, of course, but Baidu do still use meta keywords. Luckily, if you have your meta keywords, that tag filled out with a list of the keywords you want to appear for the sake of Baidu, Bing or Google for that matter aren't going to penalize you for having that. That's fine to have those. It's just they're going to ignore them and they're not going to kind of rank you just because you give them a list of what you want to rank for. So obviously, yeah, avoid anything political that censors in China might have a problem with. If you're thinking about creating content, there might be some content that's going to be great and get a lot of publicity and a lot of coverage in some markets that you just don't want anywhere near your Chinese site. So that means that even if, with Bing, you can, have it on a .com, unlike with Baidu, you might still actually, for the sake of keeping one website separate, with, information on there that isn't going to cause any issues, isn't political. That's another reason why you might want to keep your Chinese site separate, even if you feel Bing is more important for you. But that is important for Baidu as well to have it on one of those country code top level domains as mentioned. Because Bing is much better than Baidu at understanding intent, one of the reasons why people are using it more, it is important to make sure that you are not just putting keywords on pages, but you're really understanding the intent and really delivering on intent like you would in any market where you're optimizing for Google and Bing. And the quality of content is important as well, of course. Bing Webmaster Tools, it's something that I tell people all the time they really should make sure they've got set up, as well as Google Search Console. Even if you're not going into China, there's a lot of data in there. There's opportunities to make sure you're submitting your sitemaps and so on in the same way you do with Google, and it's still a significant amount of search in a lot of markets. So do get Bing Webmaster Tools set up on your site and do gain insights there, including specifically what's happening in China, where your traffic's coming from, what people are searching for, and where you're getting visibility. Some things to consider with Baidu. So you need Chinese language content. Baidu only really works for the time being with Chinese language content. They keep on saying they're going to kind of develop something so they can handle content from other languages and translate it. And there's some talk that Ernie Bot, their kind of equivalent of Gemini or Bing Bot or Bing Chat is going to be able to do that. But for the moment, you need Chinese language content, and that can be either traditional Chinese or simplified Chinese. And Baidu can convert between those two for users. Title tags should be up to 80 characters. Meta descriptions should include keywords. So unlike with Google and Bing, where meta description impacts click-through rate and so on, if it gets shown, with Baidu, you can optimize it for keywords like we used to be able to do once upon a time for Google and Bing. As mentioned, it does use the keyword tag. Not saying it's the most important ranking factor, but it is one of the factors that they do still look at. Alt tags for images are important. H1 tags are important still. URLs should be as short as possible. One really big one is don't rely on JavaScript, and definitely don't use single page applications if you want Baidu to be able to find your content. I've come across a few sites now that are designed in such a way that while Google and Bing can crawl them absolutely fine, Baidu can't find all of the pages. That's one site I was looking at recently, where a lot of product detail pages, just as far as Baidu knew, that those pages just didn't exist because of issues with JavaScript. But fast websites are important. So it's not quite the same as Core Web Vitals, but it's just a kind of general kind of speed. Obviously, if you're optimizing for that for Google, then that's going to have a positive impact for Baidu as well. As will making sure your site is mobile friendly. And links are definitely a ranking factor. It used to be more for Baidu a focus on just quantity. Now it's much more quality, though probably not to quite the same extent as Google. So another kind of important difference there. As mentioned, short URLs, and those generally are still written in Latin script using Pinyin. So basically transcribing across from Chinese characters to Latin characters. A few tools you can use to help out with getting started on Baidu. So Phoenix Nest is Baidu's equivalent of Google AdWords. And even if you're just spending a little bit of money, it can impact your visibility, as we talked about earlier. Maybe not directly visibility, but gives you some benefits which will have a knock-on effect. And you get access then to Baidu's version of Keyword Planner. Now, we've got a screenshot here of what that looks like, but as you can see, it is all in Chinese. So definitely one of the things we get are limes in China to help us out with that keyword research process using that tool. You can add kind of get Google Translate or similar to try and translate it, but it's never quite the same as being able to speak the language and understand what's what. Baidu Tongyi is Baidu's analytics platform. There's Baidu Webmaster Tools. So again, make sure you get that set up, and you need to actually submit. If you've got structured data that you want Baidu to see, you need to submit it through there. Works in a slightly different way to kind of schema and structured data with Google. You need to basically tell them what's what, and which parts of the page are which, as you did with Google once upon a time. And then Baidu Index is actually Baidu's equivalent of search trends. And that's a really useful tool as well for doing keyword research and finding related queries, it expands out the queries a lot more than Google search trends expands it out. So it can be quite powerful keyword research tool. Because Baidu isn't going to be going anywhere soon, so optimize for Bing, optimize for Baidu, and maybe consider some of these smaller competitors that we saw earlier. As we've talked about, Bing's results clearly are better than Baidu's, and Baidu's results are not as good as they could be. But it's not just Bing who are trying to do a better job than Baidu and arguably succeeding. Soku and Haosou. Apologies for my pronunciation on those, probably not quite right. But they are trying to make improvements. So Soku is popular because it's able to show results and then use AI translation from non-Chinese language websites. So again, for people who want access to websites from outside of China, we certainly a lot of people within China do. Extra information, again, still censored, but this gives them the ability to actually read information that isn't available anywhere in Chinese. So that's one of the reasons why they're gaining visibility. Also, they're part of Tencent, which is obviously a huge company in China. And there's increasingly integration of Soku into WeChat, which is China's #1 mobile app. And is used a lot by younger users and mobile users. So that can link with WeChat means that it's a similar audience, certainly crossover there with people using Soku. And then Haosou. So this one's a little bit different. It's part of a suite of products which are focused on security. So a secure web browser, web site security, etc. And this is a kind of safe search. So it's getting quite a lot of popularity. It's kind of focus on improving just overall search technology as well. And so this is aimed more at people who are, have a focus on security when they're browsing. So, as we've discussed, Baidu isn't going anywhere. It's still got a lot of popularity, particularly by mobile users. The app's still hugely popular, but they don't have it their own way anymore. Chinese users are increasingly frustrated with Baidu. While it has made some changes, and ErnieBot has been a big focus for it, the main search product hasn't changed a lot in recent years, and the quality has gone downhill. I think, if you look at Google, if they don't keep on constantly changing their algorithm, every time they make a change, then sooner or later people catch up with it and find a way to get around it. Baidu's been the same for far too long. Too many people getting around it, doesn't understand intent as well as it could, and misses out on certain results. And these are all things that Bing is doing better, and Sohu and Haosou are also doing some things better. So you do need to consider optimizing for these if China is an important market for you. Otherwise, a lot of people, a lot of visitors, left out there not being able to find you if you don't have visibility. And maybe you could just literally can't get visibility on Baidu if it's, you're going after the kind of terms where those partners are there. So it's an opportunity to gain organic visibility. So hopefully everyone's found that interesting. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody wants to send me anything, either now or later. Yeah, hope everyone found that useful. Thank you for listening.